February the 26th. Quite obviously, English isn't my first language. Go ahead, make my day by commenting you wouldn't have guessed. My native tongue is German. If accented, I still speak English fluently. And there is one thing I can only do in English, and that is creative writing. Strange, I know. Currently, I use Duolingo to refresh my French and my Hebrew, but the first foreign language I learned was Russian. Everyone in East Germany had to do so. And while in South Carolina in high school, I also took Spanish. That makes 6 languages and their specific ways of grammaring. I mention that not to brag, but because humankind is using by the latest count 7,100 different languages today. Now, language is the basis of our conscious mind. Language was also the big advantage of us Homo sapiens because its use enabled our ancestors some 70,000 years ago to invent stories that created the basis of cooperation in large numbers, facilitating our rise to the top of the food chain. And a polyglot like me knows very well that the language we speak shapes the way we think. Just take this one example, gender-based speech. To eliminate gender-based discrimination, you must start at the root. That's in the head of the people. Their language shapes their every thought. That's true for everything you want to change. It has to start in the heads of the people. Therefore, I want you to think. That's why I come on air every night. Anyway, in German now, even our chairs, tables, and windows have genders. Well, windows are actually neutral, but all our chairs and tables want you to know that they are male, while the cots are female. Thank you very much. Gender-neutral speech, therefore, turns into something more like both genders speak. What is awkward and artificial and will not work. Okay, one more example. The point of reference for spatial relations. In Europe and the West in general, the speaker becomes quite egocentrically the reference point when we talk about left and right or up and down. You get the gist. In many other languages, however, the reference point is the landscape. Makes more sense. The same for time. We in the West move through time, while in other cultures the time around the human moves. You end up thinking differently when everything rotates around you compared to someone who recognizes themselves as a blip in a far more persistent and therefore important natural world. Now, language is a thing of the conscious mind. I said so in the beginning. Our unconscious mind communicates in feelings, showing up as bodily symptoms we interpret sometimes better, sometimes worse. As I have mentioned a time or two or 100, consciousness equals perception plus data. So, when in the process does language's influence show up? Does it already influence what perception data is added to, so we become conscious of it? This was tested in the lab of Lena Boroditsky. With the help of colors, because language divides up the color spectrum in many different ways. While English and others know the large category of blue, combining all its shades and hues under one term, Russian, for example, divides blue already in 2 large categories with their own terms for each one of them. Just as an aside, blue was the last category of colors to get a name, so that, for example, the ancient Greeks didn't have a word for blue. Anyway, sorting exercises proved that language made a difference already on the stage of perception. Meaning, the human brain can process 11 million bits of information, of perception, every second. The speed limit for our conscious mind is at 120 bits per second. much of the information obtained from the world through perception must be discarded, therefore, and will be lost for us without a possibility of recovery. And what language we speak already impacts the selection of it, what is kept and what is deleted. So the language we speak decides what reality we see. I have so many questions based on this when it comes to our society today. Has language lost any of its power to allow us to cooperate because there are 7,100 languages now? Have in particular the European languages that are now spoken in the Americas and Australia and New Zealand as well evolved in such a way that they are a reason already that we have difficulties to imagine radically different ways to organize our societies anymore. I mean, when you are only thinking as yourself as the center of everything, and when there's money, it's quite hard to do, so to think something different, like society-wise. Should we think about creating a movement in which we all learn a landscape-centered language to lose this egocentric way of thinking that comes with languages in which the speaker is the reference point for time and space? What we can now today gives us so much to think about in order to find solutions for our problems and the right ideas for the future we want to have. All it takes of you is to think. Make a habit out of thinking. Turn thinking into a movement. Like, comment and share. And as always, thank you for gifting me with a few minutes of your most precious, your lifetime.